just take you through the front pages this morning. Let's start, if we can, with the Sunday Times. We mentioned this at the beginning of the programme. This sort of broke yesterday. It's in multiple papers this morning. The headline: Germany given multiple warnings by Saudi Arabia over the market killer. Saudi Arabia says it repeatedly warned the German government about the extremist views of the man who drove a car into the Christmas market, killing at least 5 people, including a 9-year-old, and injuring hundreds more. This is Taleb Abdul Muhsin, a 50-year-old doctor. He arrived in Germany in 2006 from the Middle Eastern country. More than 200 people taken to 15 hospitals, 41 seriously injured. It is feared the death toll will continue to rise. Charlie rightly said that actually Germany is facing sort of enormous political turmoil. Olaf Scholz lost that vote of confidence. The AfD is rising. The AfD is now polling at 19%. The SDP on 17%. CDU at 31%. And I still maintain that this story, there's still stuff we don't really understand about this story, whether he is a radical right-winger, whether he is an anti-Muslim. He himself was Muslim. He then rescinded that religion. But also, my supposition is that given what I've been reading, there are definitely sort of... There could be evidence of delusions, hallucinations. You know, is this man mentally ill? And that's the headline on the Sunday Times. The Sun on Sunday, another sister publication, Free to Kill. They are saying 3 warnings over the Christmas market maniac. This man, apparently, the German authorities, this is reiterating what we learnt from the Sunday Times, German authorities were warned 3 times by Saudi about this doctor, including the plot to murder. Apparently, they included disturbing posts that something big will happen in Germany, in inverted commas. This is where the story moves on. Britain is now on high alert for copycat killers. And there are a lot of questions here about also, how did he get into the middle of a market? It appears that the market was by a tram line that allowed him to drive a car. And someone was saying to me yesterday that at Christmas markets in this country, you're seeing armed police.
Yes, and I think there's, particularly in Germany, I think there were some bollards that were not in place when they should have been. And I think that, how on earth that came about and whether that's absolutely right, and that allowed the car to obviously penetrate where the public is sort of walking around. But you're absolutely right. It is a sorry sight that it is now common. If you go to a Christmas market or any kind of Christmas activity, festive venture today, you're going to see armed police. Now, I obviously welcome that because you want to keep the public safe. If that's what needs to happen, then okay, we have to accept that. I don't want them sort of, at every mulled wine store or hut or whatever. You want them in the background, but obviously a visible presence to deter anyone that's going to cause you harm. But the idea that where we are, where that is even needed, is an awful situation to be in. But that is just on the back of the rise of all the hate that goes on, online harms, people that want to do us harm in the Western world. And, for too long, maybe we haven't talked about it. We haven't talked about maybe the lack of integration. We haven't talked about people that have
I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, I think it's true.
I think we're increasingly living parallel lives.
Yes, yes. And look, there are benefits to immigration. Let's be honest about that. Some immigration, where it's needed. I don't think anybody would have an argument about a particular worker that maybe is working in the NHS. If it's a life or death situation, I don't actually care where they come from. I want the care and the treatment.
But you have to adopt British values.
But you have to adopt British... If you come into this country, of course we want you to speak the language, but it's beyond that now. And I think this is what... Kemi Badenoch, I don't want to get too political about it, but, she did touch on something during her leadership campaign where she said that there are some cultures that are not equal to others. And I do think what she was getting at is that there are people that are born in this country now that are British, who are second, third generation of people that might have immigrated to the country, that still hold different views to what are Western British values, whether it's, forced marriage or arranged marriage in particular religions or cultures. That is wrong. And I think that's what she was saying in that sense. And it is equally wrong that even if you are British and born in this country, the idea that you want to, or if you get lulled into a sense of anti-Western views and go down the rabbit hole of the dark web, and then start to cause us harm or start to preach hate against people in this country or this country as a whole, I think then something has to be done about that group of people, and because it just rises, it causes rise to hate, and hate leads on to acts, kind of the acts that we've seen in Germany and what we don't want to see repeated here in the UK.
I think that has enormous resonance up and down the country this morning as people are waking up. Let's move on to the Sunday Telegraph now. Net zero grocery tax to push up the food bills. Yes, that's right. More net zero nonsense. This is the extended producer responsibility scheme. It was shelved under the Conservative Party. Labour has resurrected it, being quietly passed. It means basically you're going to be paying more for your food. The Mail on Sunday. The Grinch Reeves steals 45% of your donations to charities. This is according to charities. This is, as Charlie was saying, Labour repeatedly pledged, did they not? We are not going to put up tax, national insurance and VAT, and then promptly put up national insurance. Oh, no, it's not national insurance, it's employer national insurance. Well, everyone else thought that was national insurance. So, anyway, Rachel Reeves was dubbed the Grinch last night as it was revealed her budget tax grab means that every £1 you give to a charity, 45p of that now goes away from that charity. So the charities are up in arms about this. It will add £1.4 billion to wage bills in the struggling voluntary sector. They say they're going to have to lay off staff. This is quite an interesting one for me because I've worked with a lot of charities. I think sometimes the charities are far too top-heavy. There are too many administrators in charities. They live in very plush buildings, many of them. For example, in Regent's Park, let's not name that particular charity. But I do think, you know, when people give £1, they expect the majority of that £1 to go to the charity.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, people understand that it's got to go to... An element of it has to go to staff and resource, whatever. But if you're paying for a particular charity, of course, you're absolutely right. You want that money to go on the actual research or the delivery or support for those that charity is supporting.
Sunday Express this morning, we're living in an increasingly unstable world, so the government's idea, great idea, cuts force HMS Queen Elizabeth out of action. This is one of our newest warships, of course. Britain will just have one lone aircraft carrier to deploy if we're attacked by a hostile power like Russia due to budget cuts. So we've got the HMS Prince of Wales, the bigger HMS Queen Elizabeth, which had tons of problems with them, but nevertheless, essentially what they're going to do is downgrade the Queen Elizabeth so that you need 6 months' notice to take her to sea. I mean, I can hardly imagine that Russia's going to say, well, by the way, chaps, we'll give you 6 months' notice. Do you want to, you know, demothball the Queen Elizabeth?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? And terrifying. I mean, if it wasn't so, funny in one sense, you know, we'd be sort of, you know, in
but
tears.
how much? But we spent 3.5 billion quid on this, and now we've decided we're not going to use it.
Yeah, and people will be asking for what? I mean, I have been on HMS.
Have you?
I have.
What's it like?
I was big. It's a big vessel.
It is a big. Was it amazing?
It was. Yes, yeah, and we had a very sort of a little tour of it. It was impressive. In fact, it was the only time when HMS Queen Elizabeth and the Prince were side by side in Portsmouth before one went off on a mission. I think it was Prince of Wales went off on some...
before the propeller brake came out.
Yes. I mean, it's impressive stuff, bit of kit, but pointless if you're then... can't use it until...
Well, the issue is they can't crew it either, I think. And that's a much bigger conversation about why Gen Z or some of the younger generations don't want to go into the forces.
Yes. I mean, it's there is a recruitment problem, but you know, we've got to make sure that, you know, we are ready as a UK to defend ourselves in whatever situation when needed.
Just very quickly, let's finish the papers this morning. The Observer: ministers resist the rush to block Musk millions going to Farage. Really interesting story, this, of course. Nigel Farage posing with Elon Musk and also Nick Candy at Mar-a-Lago. Nigel sort of rattling the cage and saying, well, look, Musk may give us 100 million or whatever, of course. And then suddenly all of these political bodies, oh, hang on a minute, very unhappy about this. But what they're saying is that we don't want to rush to block this because it will backfire, and then reform will have more sort of support from the general public. And I think that's just quite an interesting line. Let's move on. The Mirror: Talisa, my secret jungle breakdown. Don't care. Sorry. Really interesting story in the Daily Star. Ronnie Craig killed Marilyn Monroe. I don't know if you read this morning. A buddy of brutal Ronnie Craig claims the gangster killed Marilyn Monroe on the orders of the US Mafia. This is the former PR man reckons he heard the shocking confession from Ronnie himself. She died at the age of 36 at her home in LA. And this chap, Campbell, claims Cray was paid in gold bars by Mafia boss Meyer Lansky, which was sent with a thank you note. Wow. Those are this morning's front pages.